This is the Raider Cop Nation podcast with your host Alpha Mike and the gang, patrolling America's law enforcement beat. Now here's your weekly briefing on Raider Cop Nation. Welcome to episode number 70 on Raider Cop Nation. I'm your host, Alpha Mike. On this six-part series that we've been covering, part one, of course, was Wednesday of last week. And now we're diving into part two, which is the what. The name of the episode or the series is Concealed Carry: Who, What, Where, When, Why, and How. That is a mouthful, and so is the subject. Lot to cover in such short time. Now, before we dive into that, I want to take advantage of apologizing for the first part of the series where myself and the two superhero guests, Mike Sierra and Kilo Sierra, dived in with us on the who can carry. As a brief summary, we discussed the adult age limit for having a weapon or carrying a concealed weapon. You know, the 18, yes, I'm an adult, but I can't drink and I can't carry a gun, but I can serve my country. And we also talked about people with post-traumatic syndrome, how that affects carrying concealed. Miracle marijuana, what does that do in all this? And we kind of painted a picture of where the government might go in the future when it's on the subject of carrying concealed weaponry. Today we discuss the what, and that is specifically is what am I carrying? What weapon of choice is it that I have on my person? So there's a lot to unpack here in such a short time, and we're going to dive into it in a minute. Of course, keeping up with our first series, as I stated, I will always come up with a slogan about what our leaders in our country, the people that we should be looking up to or have looked up to, and some of their quotes. Today we continue with the General George Patton, where he said, "When in doubt, attack." And as we know, in today's political arena, it's attack, attack, attack all day long, and it looks like there's no relief in sight. But as such, it is the wacky world that we live in, especially in this country. If you haven't noticed, the Democratic left, they are losing control of their party at a rapid speed. Recent poll indicated 51% of Democrats are acknowledging that they are leftist, socialist in nature. So they are rapidly losing control over there. They're being mugged, pickpocketed, bitch slapped, and everything else that you can come up with. But they are losing their party. This is why the old guard, they are just acting as crazy as they can be, coming up with all crazy concepts, lying down in front of the train as it comes, just to be obstacles because they have no plan and no idea and have no idea how to proceed just before they get mugged themselves. So they are a large segment of our political population, the Democratic Party, and they are bursting at the seams. They are being overridden and overtaken by the Communist Army, the Red Army, and there's nothing else we can do but watch this sideshow. So it will affect each and every American, especially in the police world, as we move forward. A lot of chiefs of police out there with political opinions on regards to, hey, the issue is not the wall, the issue is my community. Well, the issue when I was 4 or 5 years old, Santa Claus never showed up. I stuck through it, and at my late age today, I've come to realize that Santa has been a fictional character all along. So if I can point here or I can point there and say crime is here and crime is there, gentlemen, ladies, we are wasting our time. The border needs to be secured because our law enforcement brethren and sisters down there that work in Border Patrol telling us what's going through there and what's happening. And we can lend a blind eye and a deaf ear to the event. But nevertheless, if we can control that border somehow, it will help our country very much so. So that's my enough for that rhetoric on politics, which is a four-letter word. We are going to dive into on carrying concealed, the what. What can I carry? Excuse me. Now, a lot of things on the agenda on what to carry. We're going to break this down into 7 segments, and let's start off with semi-auto. Just taking a little sip of an adult beverage, which is classified as coffee. Now, on the semi-auto area, we have 3 specific subdivisions or subsections we're going to look at, and that is the subcompact, the compact, and the duty weapon, or full-size duty weapon. The subcompact and the compact. What are the differences? Well, there's a lot of differences from duty to subcompact in accuracy, and not so much firepower, but hitting the target is going to be adventurous also. Now, there are more areas that we're going to look at as well. We're going to look at, let's get out of the semi-auto, we're going to look at revolver, which used to be the traditional carry, and that's gone to the wayside slowly but surely. Knives is a knife for concealed carry. Tactical baton, OC spray, taser, and there's a lot more. I'm sure people out there with brass knuckles and everything else they can come up with. But for time, we're going to look at these 7, and of course, emphasizing in specifically on firearms, because that's what the show's about. Now, when we look at the subcompact, we notice that the subcompact is the barrel length in itself is shorter. Some at 3 inches, 3.5 inches, and so forth. And therefore, this becomes a little bit more troublesome on recoil and accuracy. Shooting a little gun, especially with large hands, could have its own challenges. So the fundamentals of shooting, all 7 of them, all those principles that we follow in shooting, are going to be greatly compromised by the size of this weapon that you're carrying. So one of the things that needs to be looked at is you need to carry a weapon based on your comfort level. So that means you, the consumer, the person carrying the concealment, that person has to be comfortable in their choice firearm. We broke down 3: subcompact, compact, and, of course, duty size or full size. Now, I am a firm believer that there are different times of the season that I can wear a different gun. There's no such thing as a permanent carry. If you're a gun enthusiast, you probably have several that you can transition to. But what really, depending on what you're going to be wearing, is depending on the conditions that you have to wear them in. Of course, being in Florida, that in itself would be a challenge. So we looked at the weather conditions. You know, there are also places that are very cold, and as a result, that might allow you to carry a full-duty weapon underneath a coat or a jacket. Of course, the name of the game, folks, is accessibility to the weapon. Now, not only do you have to be comfortable in that weapon and all of its elements that go with shooting, you also have to have accessibility to the weapon in a rapid or quick time of space. You can't be fumbling around with stuff to try to take the weapon out. So, on the semi-auto market, from subcompact to compact to full duty, I specifically have a variety of wear, and I have my summer gear, and I do live in the Tampa Bay area, so I am part of that wonderful tropical life in Florida, and I'm carrying a M&P Smith & Wesson 9mm, and it is my daily carry for the majority of the months in Florida, but not the only weapon that I will carry. I will also go into the Glock aspect. Being my full duty, I will go ahead and carry the weapon that I carried for many, many years in my job, and that is the Glock 23 40 caliber, which nowadays saying a 40 is like a dirty word. Ew, you carry a 40? And old reliable, I call her. And I've learned to master that weapon. It has helped me tremendously on grip. And, I don't think you should be afraid of the 40 caliber. I think you need to master the 40 caliber. It'll make the 9 look a lot easier. So that's my variation. We look at the revolver aspect. We have the traditional revolvers that we've carried, the 5 shot or 5 rounds and 6 rounds and so forth. You've got Ruger, you got Colt, you've got Smith & Wesson and Taurus as well, and maybe some others I've missed. And you also have the titanium lite. Now, the issue with the revolver for me is it's never going to be as more concealed as it might be the semi-auto, especially the semi-autos that are in the single stack form. The revolver will be somewhat bulky, not necessarily meaning you can't carry it, and it can be carried in different ways too. The other issue with carrying a firearm is, where do you carry it? We're going to look at that in other episodes, but where do you carry this firearm on your person? Alternate carrying could be a problem for you if you have to use it. So with these light titanium revolvers, they're excellent. Some of them use the plus P 38 round. Now we're going into the heavy duty. Remember, the 40 calibers turned into a four-letter word in gun culture. You carry a 40? And now the 38 plus P is not far behind either, folks. So there are issues with revolvers. The knife. There are many tactical blades out there that we can get our hands on. The fixed blade, the switchblade. Remember the old switchblades? And, of course, that you remove the rectangular type of blade. And each one has a variation of what you're going to be using it for. Of course, I'm an advocate that if you're going to be carrying a knife, you should know how to use a knife. Therefore, that's a self-defensive course of instruction. There is the proper way of using a knife. The old throwing out the haymaker and slashing away is not the proper way to use it. But it's one that's excellent on television, TV shows, especially reruns from the 70s. And a lot of people think that that's the concept of carrying a knife. So a knife is in the play too, but you got to be trained in the knife because you could turn around and become three fingers brown. You want to make sure you know how to carry a knife. The tactical baton or the ASP is part of that concealed weaponry as well. Again, your state may vary. Your state may not have a license, or your state may be very specific in the carry and what you can. Some of these items, as a disclaimer, may not be covered in your state. So it would behoove the listener to make sure and look up what your state is, their requirements, or call a lawyer in your state and let the lawyer try to answer it. Now, the tactical baton has advantages, disadvantages. It is a fight situation. The disadvantages is it is quite lengthy, so you would have to take it out of your person, extend the baton, and go ahead and deploy it. There is a chance that that tactical baton may be dislodged from your person, which is not a good thing. So what would you need there, kids? That is correct. Proper training in tactical baton. And I know the company ASP, I am certified with them. I know that they have the course that we are talking about. Usually the tactical baton is used on a person's uniform duty belt, so it is for duty use, not necessarily concealed. Could it be concealed? Of course. Could it be used? But you should be tactically sound in any of these elements or options that we're talking about. Next on the horizon is the OC, or pepper spray. This is a favorite of course, a lot of people. Some of the pepper sprays that are sold out there cannot kill flies, let alone hurt a bad guy. So make sure that what you are using does work. The reliability, you have to be very accurate with the nozzle of the spray. Make sure that the nozzle doesn't twist in any way. So when you do take it out of your person, your purse, your bag, your underwear, wherever you have it, and you deploy it, that the nozzle's in the position of where it needs to go and not aiming towards you, let's say, because that would be a horrible mistake. And lastly, the taser. There are some tasers that you have to deploy, physically touch the person, and there are others. Again, this is one of those areas that you have to look at what your state allows you to carry. Taser has all kinds of problems because it only renders the person neutral for 5 seconds. Therefore, that might not give you enough time, and you might not have enough of a charge in your make-believe taser that you brought at the discount store to tase this person over and over again. So these are the weapons that you can carry. So this would be under the topic of what we are carrying. But we are specifically concentrating on semi-autos and revolvers and firearms for this specific show. We're going to bring on our guest. They're going to give us their hot list, what they think is really, really good for the watt and what they would carry. I did say that I used the Glock 23 as a full. I've used the 27, and that is what is considered the baby Glock in 40. Oh, you used a 40 caliber? And, of course, my daily carry is my M&P from Smith & Wesson in 9. Single stack. Love that little gun. Big difference from shooting it from the Glock. So takes some mastering. Not that the Glock is the weird gun that you have to get used to. But when you go to the Smith & Wesson, you see everything is a lot more tighter. Springs are tighter. Everything's a little bit more tighter than it is in the Glock. So a quick 5-minute review would do wonders before you deploy it. And I had some other weapons that I can use, but those are specifically the three that I would use on my person, depending again on the season and the concealment. So I don't want to wear my 23 on a hot summer day in June or July with a small pair of shorts and have a big bulge and have all of a sudden not care who can notice it. That wouldn't be tactically sound. So, as we said, depending on the season, depending on the climate, is depending on the weaponry if you have a choice. If you don't have a choice, you only have one gun, then you want to make sure that you have mastered that gun in the what aspect. What are you carrying? That means you know how to take that weapon down. You know how to shoot that weapon properly. You know how to maintain that weapon and clean that weapon as well. So you feel very confident. The only thing you would now have to look at is how are you going to carry it. But remember, we told you on this series, the how is going to be lengthy. All right, so let's jump into the subject and let's call in our first superhero lineup. Starts now. And as usual, one of our favorite superhero co-hosts, Kilo Sierra, is back on the show. Welcome on the show, buddy.
Good morning, sir. How are you today?
I am blessed, and I know that we are blessed to have you.
Why, thank you very much. I love the compliment. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
As always, we are bringing quality content to the show. We're letting the listeners know. Today's subject on the Carry Concealed is the what on episode 70. What can you carry? Now, before we got you onto the show, I did break it down a little bit for the audience. We spoke about semi-auto. You have the compact, the compact, and the full duty. We spoke about the revolver and the titanium knife, tactical baton, OC, taser. You know, those are just other options.
Yes.
But of course, we're concentrating on that carry concealed in firearms. Now, there's a lot of good guns out there, as you know.
Oh, yes.
And,
yes.
And we could probably be on this one show for a month.
Oh, definitely.
And you know what the sick part is? There'd be millions listening.
Exactly.
Eating popcorn and enjoying the content that we're giving them.
Absolutely. But, it's great because there's so many great options. That's what's awesome about it.
And it's a field that's getting bigger and bigger. The polymer field is growing as well.
Yes, it is.
So on your take for carrying concealed as a former range master and, of course, a current instructor in firearms, what's your take on that everyday carry, let's say?
Well, everyday carry, first, the two most important things. So before I even get into like different types of models as examples, what you can shoot well and a quality holster. Because those are the two things that yes, you definitely want something that you can conceal. Which is very important because you want to, assuming you have a concealed carry permit, you want to conceal it and you cannot skimp on your holster. So those are the first two things that small. If the gun's small or the gun's slightly larger, regardless of the model, it's what, in my personal opinion, first and foremost, a gun that functions well and a gun you're very accurate with and you can shoot well and you're extremely proficient with under any emergent circumstances.
Good point.
And the holster, a good quality holster, because I've learned as a rookie, you cannot skimp on holsters. And it has to be comfortable, because if the holster isn't comfortable, you are not going to wear it.
Right.
And for everyday wear, like if you go into the bathroom, you're sitting down, if the holster's not of the best quality, the gun, I've seen cases where the gun is popped out of the holster, or the holster's ripped, or when you pull the holster out from concealment, not only do you pull the gun out, but the holster likes to stick for the ride as well. And you pull the gun and the holster out, and it's a mess. And that's why a lot of my courses on concealed carry, I insist that the individuals who take my class bring in the different types of guns and the different types of holsters, because you'd rather know and understand, okay, whether the holster you tend to carry and the gun you tend to carry, can you shoot well with it under various positions? One of the positions I also teach shooting is the sitting down, the supine position, because many fights or exchanges involve shooting from the ground. And there are some holsters that are useless when you're in a seated position.
Correct.
So these uncomfortable positions. So in a nutshell, the point I'm trying to get at is, before I get into the models that are pretty cool, the fun stuff, that the holster is key, and whatever gun you're comfortable shooting with and that you can conceal.
Now,
if
yes. I can make this point on the holsters. Again,
yes.
If you're a Second Amendment lover like we are,
yes,
you'll understand the point I'm about to make. For those that are novices, let's just say your holster collection will be large. Okay, because
yes,
you're going to all of a sudden say, this is garbage, this is good, and you're going to compile boxes and boxes of holsters.
Your fall holster, your winter holster, your summer holster, your beach holster. Yeah, absolutely. Your boardwalk holster.
Exactly.
Your salsa dancing holster. No, exactly. No, absolutely.
Yeah,
yep.
So just be on the lookout for that as you travel through the gun world. Holsters are a big deal.
Huge.
And you have
Huge.
Love-hate relationships with your holster as you go on through there.
So true. So true. And the size of the firearm, you get that debate too. I mean, typically, rule of thumb, subcompact, compact, but there's some people that I know. For example, I don't want to name names, but I used to qualify this individual, a rather large officer, who would conceal a Model 29 Smith & Wesson. And when I first qualified him, I'm like, dude, really? He's like, yeah, like it. And hey, he proved me wrong. Not only was he able to shoot 100% with it, but he was able to conceal it because he was a rather large individual, and he had an inside the pant holster, and it was a 4-inch Model 29, and he got away with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about training. It really is.
Yeah.
I think I think it's training and mindset. If you fixate your mind into that type of development of training, it's going to happen for you.
Yeah, the training. I'm glad you said the training, because in conjunction with the training, what is an absolute must is that, aside from your traditional standing comfortably and reaching and sweeping your clothing away from it and pulling the shirt out of the way, the standard stuff, you must be able to shoot in what I call awkward positions. Because you will, in a fight, just like when you take martial arts and you try to analyze different things that could occur during an emergency situation. So for example, I try my best to train people, and myself as well, I'm including myself in the mix, to, let's say, from whatever concealment holster I have, to try to draw, shoot, load, and reload with my support hand only, to see if I can access the firearm with my support hand with my concealed apparatus, or with my concealed holster.
Right.
You know, and those are the things because you never know what's going to come at you. Right. In a situation. Also, I like to add too, that's really important, is that, regarding concealed carry, and I talk about this, sometimes you have concealed carry holsters in which you have the belly bands. Let's say you're a jogger, you have a belly band, and they're great because it kills the profile. You can put a sweatshirt on it, you don't need a belt. However, the deeper you conceal the firearm, the more time it takes for you to access it.
Exactly.
So these are the things that you have to, that's why I insist that all of my students, when they come to training, whatever gun they want to carry, holsters, aside from the gun, it's 50-50. Of course, the firearm size is important, how they function, how they shoot, but people negate the crucial aspect of the holster, because that is what carries the gun on your body. That is what you have to remove the gun from.
Exactly.
So it's key. You cannot skimp on the holster.
No, you got to marry the two.
Yes, correct.
They've got to be together at the hip.
Yes, correct. So like I use belly band when I jog, and that's another issue. Some people like ankle holsters. So it all depends on how fast you can access your weapon during an emergency situation.
Yeah, and on the ankle holster, just to make a reference to that, and not trying to be funny, but remember, if you're a righty, your ankle holster will go on your left and vice versa.
Exactly.
Some people don't know that, and they buy the wrong ankle holster.
Yep, that is so true. That's a great point. And also, what people forget is that if they tend to use an ankle holster a lot more often, that guns in general get dirtier quicker if you use them in an ankle holster.
Correct.
So if that is the case, then you always have to clean your gun, but you have to be more prudent if your weapon is in an ankle holster a lot more often than it is in a hip holster, because it tends to get dirtier.
Exactly. It's too close. It's closer to the ground. You're absolutely
exactly.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And also depends the size of the gun too for the ankle holster. Also, so you gotta be careful.
Now diving into the gun.
Yes.
For firearms, we have the revolver. Of course, it's been a favorite for many, many years, probably 40, 50 years. And now they have the revolver in titanium and so forth, making it a very light weapon.
I'd like to jump in on that. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I definitely want to talk about that. Now, the titanium, scandium firearms that exist, it's a double-edged sword, in my opinion. They're great because a lot of them are 11, 12 ounces.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're phenomenal. You almost forget you're carrying them. They're great. But what I want to stress for those individuals that have not shot them, that it's a big difference when you shoot a scandium or a titanium revolver than a normal revolver, because of the less weight, you actually feel the recoil more. So it requires, in my opinion, a little more training for faster follow-up shots.
Correct.
Because they're very light. They're great. I've used them. I've had many titanium revolvers, and they're wonderful. But it just, as an FYI for those individuals that are hearing this and want to get one, they're fantastic. But I recommend a lot more training, because there's more perceived recoil on whichever caliber. So it just takes a little more training if you're not proficient already. It takes a little more training for that accurate second follow-up shot or the follow-up shots.
Correct. And another thing is the plus 38, the plus P, and the power that goes behind that. And a lot of people have to take that into consideration. Also, your concealment, because it is a revolver, it might be a little bit more of a print on your body as a result of that.
Correct, because of the cylinder. Exactly.
Correct. So, yes, you're going to have probably a lighter weapon. Very expensive, too. They're not cheap. They're not cheap. But one thing about a revolver is reliability. It does what you make it do.
Correct.
Press the trigger and it shoots.
Yeah, exactly. And exactly. It's very simple. You can even, for women or for individuals that carry purses, I mean, if in an emergency situation, if you have to, you can actually even fire it through a purse.
Correct. Because
it will go through where a semi-automatic will jam. So it has its place. It definitely. I love revolvers too. I love them both, and it has its place. And it's a great firearm, but it requires a little extra training if it's one of those ultralight models. But yeah, they work. They're very functional. You can shoot fast, and they're wonderful. I carry once in a while my Colt Detector Special.
There you go.
Love that gun. Steel frame, 6 rounds, and it's light and it's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah, people that wear revolvers, like my old range master, he wears his revolver and he swears by it. It's something that people they've trained with, they've used so well, they won't replace it. It
Exactly.
works for them. It works for them.
Hey, if it works, that's the key. If it works for you, then stick with it. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
So now we travel into the semi-auto market,
Yes.
and this is a huge market. And we break it down to the three components, which is the subcompact, the compact, and the full duty.
Correct.
What's your take on these?
Correct. Some of the subcompacts that I personally like, and this is for personal preference, I like the Glock 43s. I used to carry the Glock 27 as well because I'm a 40 caliber guy.
I have the 27, my friend.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. I like them a lot. I also like the I carry the Ruger LCP in 380 with a Sneaky Pete holster. I carry that a lot. And I also like the Ruger LC9s. I like Rugers also in general because they're a very robust firearm. And regardless of the size, regardless of the caliber, Rugers are very robust, and I just like them. And the LCP I carry personally, and I like the LC9s as well as subcompact. And SIGs, of course, I like the SIGs. The 938 and the 238s are real nice too. They're very, and of course, old school. The Colt Mustangs are cool. Yes. Very cool. And even the semi-autos, the 1911 versions, like the Kimbers, the Micros, they're actually very promising.
Yes, a little bit on the expensive side too, but they are very, very, very good guns.
Yes,
now,
exactly.
Now with the subcompact, I'm going to lose a little bit on accuracy, correct?
Yes, correct, because it's a smaller sight radius. So the distance between the front sight and the rear sight is very small as compared to a larger firearm, which means that, on the range, if there's a slight deviation on when you align the sights, it's going to be a little more pronounced the further out you go because it's a small sight radius. But because the smaller, and people don't realize this, is that the smaller the gun is in general, the more difficult it tends to be to shoot if you don't train properly.
Correct. Yep.
So the smaller the gun, it is a little more challenging to shoot. But like you and I have spoken before, it's just a matter of training. But it's a matter of being cognizant of that fact. It's physics. It's just a more perceived recoil for the most part, a shorter sighter radius, which means that a smaller mistake is a larger mistake. A smaller mistake with the sights is a larger mistake downrange, which is a little what I call itty bitty pistol. So. But that's okay. It's just a matter of training. You just to have that understanding in mind and train with it, and you should not have a problem.
Yeah, correct. I totally agree. Now, the industry itself is really concentrating on the subcompact area because this is what attracts concealed carriers.
Correct.
And to give an example on one company, which I referred to this during the segment of the plastic gun, where Glock first introduced itself. Everybody gave it that bad ideology of, it's just a plastic gun. It's a plastic gun. And Glock couldn't get over that stigma of being the plastic gun. Well, now we see the SIG, the 365, the issue with the firing pin, which is, according to SIG, less than 1% of the guns that they're manufacturing. Very small percentage. But now SIG's got to get through this stigma that their guns will stop firing at one point, and you never know when that is. And that goes into the psyche and the mindset of the shooter.
Correct. Because they're firearms, they come out, especially newer models that might have kinks that the manufacturer will address, but that's been happening since the inception of firearms. It happens. It happens. But in today's social media world, the mistakes are they're more prolific in regarding, knowledge. Everyone knows it quicker. So manufacturers are always behind the eight ball when they have to correct a mistake. Or a manufacturing problem. And SIG's no different. Glock every company has some type of problem that they have to deal with. And it's a matter of just looking at the manufacturer's quality and their history.
Now, if you look at the reviews on the 365, the SIG, everybody says it's a fantastic little gun. But now the stigma that one day it might not work is really stuck in the mindset of a lot of people. SIG has addressed this issue. Unfortunately, they've become now the modern-day plastic gun that Glock had to overcome back in the 80s when they were introduced.
Correct. And hopefully they can overcome that stigma with quality control and with them doing what they have to do and rectifying the problem. I hope that they were able to overcome that stigma, because SIG sells another outstanding firearm, an outstanding brand.
In my opinion, I think SIG really pushed the envelope on making the 365 as small as they did. And only they could pull it off, being so good of a manufacturer. Even though it has problems, anybody else would have tried to pull this off, it would have been a disaster.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Would have been a disaster.
Absolutely. It's engineering. It's great. It's awesome. SIG's a great product. Yes.
It is a great product.
Yes, it is.
As well as the Glock too. So
yes, it is. Oh, of course, they're great. And that's what makes this a great topic, is that there's so many outstanding manufacturers to choose from. It's great.
In my opinion, I don't know if you agree. I believe that every manufacturer is following Glock.
Correct.
Now I'll probably get the Glock lovers. Let's change the channel. There's no doubt that there are better weapons than Glock out there. There's no doubt. But for the reliability and the money, you can't overlook Glock.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
I remember the plastic gun in the 80s. Now everybody's polymer and everybody's following.
Right. Not only is everybody trying to follow the quote unquote the plastic gun, but the internal striker fire guns. How many manufacturers are making striker fire guns that are similar to Glock? So they're definitely trendsetters.
Yes, they really are.
Yeah.
And again, as we said, that the subcompact is geared for that concealed carrier, especially the newcomer.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
You said, knowing that a smaller gun is going to be a little less accurate, so you're going to have to train up a lot more on that gun. And just to touch briefly on one more manufacturer, and that's the Mossberg.
Yes.
Known for shotguns, known for rifling, over 100 and something years tradition.
Love Mossberg.
Here they come out now with a little semi-auto subcompact called the MC1.
I can't wait to shoot that. I cannot wait to try to shoot that. I love Mossberg to begin with. I'm so looking forward to shooting that firearm.
I see the reviews on the MC1, and the only thing I can think of is toughness and reliability.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because that's the way their shotguns are.
Correct.
You can beat it to death, and it's always going to shoot.
I own many Mossberg shotguns, and I also own the Plinkster, the rifles, the 22s, and they're fantastic. So I can just imagine this new product coming out. That's why I'm so looking forward to trying it. They're just a great manufacturer.
Now, I'm a firm believer that if you're a novice and you're getting involved for the very first time in firearms, you should maybe go to a range where you can rent these guns, shoot them for yourself, and see what works, what fits in your hand.
That's exactly what I tell my students. If sometimes a student has a hard time deciding what firearm to buy, so if I tell them, look, I have enough guns where I can bring my own before the class or during the class. However, That's a recommendation that I always recommend, that for that if they have a luxury of finding a range where they rent different types of firearms, it would behoove them to do that, because it's definitely very important to figure out which type of gun you can shoot accurately. That's where it comes down to. There are certain guns that I know, it doesn't matter what gun, for some reason you or I can touch it and shoot great, with a novice shooter won't be that great. Even with training, it all depends on the individual, on the hand size. Like, for example, and I can speak on my behalf, certain 380s for my hands. I don't have huge hands per se, but there are certain manufacturers with a 380 that I cannot shoot because it gives me what's called a 380 bite.
Yeah.
The slide bites me and it makes my hand bleed. And no matter how I grab it, it just doesn't work. So I know that I cannot shoot that type of firearm because that frame doesn't work for me.
Exactly.
So, right, and it might work for you. So that's a great idea. I think I always recommend to students that before they go window shopping for a gun, especially if they're relatively new, then either find an individual that has a different assortment of firearms, or go to the range and rent different sizes and different calibers. Definitely.
Excellent points we're making here. Now we're going to go into the bigger boys, the more reliable, the more stronger gun, if for lack of a better term, and that's the compact, and we'll even throw in the full duty. What do you got?
Yes.
What do you got on that?
Yes, so a compact I carry a lot for, not just for not off duty, for security work. I have a Glock 23 as an example. I carry that. That's a compact. I also carry a 4-inch Springfield Commander, government model 45, and that's technically a compact because it's a commander size.
Right.
It's just a matter. Compacts, of course, tend to be slightly heavier, generically speaking, in regards to their subcompact counterpart. A compact tends to be a little heavier, tends to have a slightly larger sight radius, which tends to make it a little easier to shoot because a little more forgiving regarding a discrepancy in the sight alignment. So it tends to be, and it's also more weight, so it tends to be easier to shoot. However, it can be a little challenging, especially for smaller statured individuals, to conceal a firearm. Right. Because of the size, and that's where holster wear is important. Where, like, for example, I'm a big guy, but sometimes a 23 can profile a little much, so I tend to wear an inside the pant holster to overcome that problem.
Correct.
So that's just an example. That's what I do. But those are definitely ones that I carry. Also carry, like I said, the revolver. I told you about that. Now, but the full size is a little more challenging.
Yes.
Yes, but that's the thing where the SIG also, they make fantastic. The 320s are a fantastic gun. Also, I'm going to buy one eventually. I don't have one yet, but I've shot many, and I love the modular design concept on the 320. I like the trigger on it, so eventually I'll buy that and be carrying that as well.
Yeah. Now the full, as you said, it is an obstacle to carry, especially for those lovers of the 1911, and we're not going to call Pistol Pete by name. That is more challenging to carry, of course, concealed. But it all depends on your wear.
Sure.
I think a little bit on that. What do you think about the different type of clothing?
Okay. Well, one of the first things is that I'm a huge proponent on wearing the firearm on your belt, whether it's strong side hip or cross draw. So one of the first things that you must take into consideration is, in my opinion, is having, aside from an outstanding holster that's comfortable and it holds the firearm properly and securely, is to have the proper belt. Correct. Because your normal dress belt will warp, especially with a heavy gun, will warp, and inside the pant holster. Well, because of the weight of the gun, your normal, quote unquote, normal belts are not necessarily made to take that extra weight. They're made to hold your pants up. So I would definitely recommend getting the gun belts, where the belts that look like dress belts, but they're actually thicker and stronger, are reinforced to actually hold the firearm.
Correct, which is my normal belt.
Right. And mine too.
I only have 511 belts.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So sometimes you have nylon, sometimes you have leather, whatever your preference is, as long as it secures the firearm securely on your hip. And that's important. If you are a fan of the shoulder holster, just to make sure it holds the weapon securely and you can conceal it, assuming you have a jacket. It's important. Concealability is huge.
Yeah.
And if you are a fan of the ankle holster, make sure that the actual holster holds the firearm securely at your ankle. And as you said, if you're a right-handed shooter, you make sure it's holstered on your left ankle, facing inside, and that your pants cover the firearm appropriately where it doesn't profile. Doesn't mean you have to wear bell bottoms, but that you have to wear the pant that is appropriate that'll cover the gun, because it'll come out. Especially, or sometimes if you sit down, your pants will creep up, and all of a sudden, if it's a low-riding ankle holster, that little barrel's going to stick out.
Right. Skinny jeans are not recommended for ankle.
No.
For ankle wear.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, and we'll finish with this topic. And the elephant in the room is double stack versus single stack.
Oh, here we go.
Because I know everybody's out there. Oh, how do I carry? Now, the Glock 23 was my duty weapon, so I've got it for over 20 years. So I use it still, even now as retired. Do the same thing with you, the inside the pants. Little uncomfortable, but hey,
yes,
there's nothing like having the big boy with you on a run. But here, the double stack issue of the Glock versus the single stack. Now, Glock has addressed this with the Glock 43X, which is single stack now. This is a new thing for Glock now. They just dived into this new market, single stack. So give us a little rundown on that.
Sure. And I go back to the point of functional reliability and how you can shoot the firearm. Some individuals have large hands, and sometimes I might have an issue having a more efficient grip with a single stack, because it tends to be thinner in their hands. Okay, it's personal preference. Personally, also a double stack tends to be wider, so which tends to be a little more challenging to conceal. So it all depends on the concealability of the firearm on your body. Because me personally, I like both, single stack versus double stack. However, regarding ammunition capacity, well, it's all a matter of training. I mean, I carry 5-shot, 6-shot revolvers, and I carry 13-round Glock, 23 mags.
Right. So
it's just a matter of training regarding the amount of ammunition you have on your body. But to me, I just think it's personal preference, because I like 1911s too, and that's a single stack for the most part, unless you get a powered ordnance where it's a double stack. Mm-hmm. And in that case, like a Beretta too, the grips tend to be a little chunkier in a Beretta 92 FS. So it's a double stack, a 9mm. So it's just a matter of what you're comfortable with too, because double stacks are definitely wider. And I think this Glock was smart in addressing the issue, because there are people that prefer single stack magazines. In the sense that it fits better in their hand for whatever stack, however your hand is, however it is. There's a large hand, small hand. Sometimes single stacks are more comfortable for the smaller handed individual, or just for the shape of your hand. Really,
I fell in love with the Smith & Wesson MMP Shields series, and because it was single stack, and
very nice.
I didn't think another firearms instructor told me about it, and I had visions of the old Smith & Wesson when they tried to go into that market, and I didn't really like it that much. But when I saw this, I fell in love with it, and that's my daily carry.
Awesome. That's great.
And
another great product. Yeah, another wonderful product.
Yeah,
yes.
I try not to mention that in front of my old Glock 23, but
they get jealous.
They sit in the safe a little longer.
Right.
Well, like always, we are blessed to have Kilo Sierra. He has blessed us with so much information here on the what aspect. What can I carry? And there's probably a lot of people out there, and this is my last question is going to be, in the form of a New Yorker, which
New
is
Yorker, exactly.
a New Yorker that is transplanted to Florida, and it's hot in Florida. So, what should I carry?
Definitely. In regards to the clothing, because clothing is a huge issue. In my personal opinion, the smaller the better. So the subcompacts will probably have its place in a hotter climate. Excellent. So the LCP, Ruger LCP, Glock 43, the SIGs, was it the 938? It's a small one.
Yes.
That's right. The Colt Mustang, even also a 38 Scandium or titanium. The smaller the better because of what you wear. That's a definite, in my personal opinion, from experience. That has a huge advantage.
I am a transplanted Floridian for over 30 years, and most of my wear is shorts, and I could tell you that I carry almost every day.
Of course.
I even carry, get this, ready? When I cut my grass.
Wow.
I cut my, forced a habit.
Dedication.
It's a force of habit, my friend.
Of course, I get it. Of course.
One day, if you are a listener, you will reach the level of psychotic behavior that myself and Kilo Sierra have with guns. And we want you to plug in always here. We are blessed to have Kilo Sierra with us. Thank you, my friend, for...
Thank you, sir. Thank you, my friend, and thank you. It's a blessing to be on the show. I love coming on. It makes my day. Thank you so much.
We are blessed to have you. I want you to have a wonderful day, and we will continue this series with Kilo Sierra. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Well, there you have it, an excellent show with interview with Kilo Sierra. On episode number 70, this is Concealed Carry, who, what, where, when, why, and how. And we are going to continue this series. This is part 2 of a 6-part series. And remember, we've told you that the how might turn into another episode in itself, more than one. So we are honored to bring you this information and that you have taken the time out of your busy schedule to listen to us. We discussed a lot about subcompact, compact, full duty, revolvers, clothing, how to train, how to feel proficient, how to rank possible firearms in the future for you to get comfortable and see if they work for you. It's all about you, and you have to train, and when you finish training, train some more, because then you'll be proficient. How do you get in contact with us? Well, it's easy. It's RaiderCopNation.com. Scroll all the way down to our page and down to the end, and you'll see the icons. They'll pop up. You can connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and everything else. It has been my pleasure, my honor to be your host on Raider Cop Nation. Next episode, number 71, the subject is the same, but we turn it over to the where. So, concealed carry, who, what, where, when, why, and how, part 3, January 23rd. It's a mouthful. I even get tongue-tied every once in a while. We will keep you blessed, and we will keep you in prayer. Remember always to bless yourself, your family, your community, and most importantly, the agency that serves you. And always, we shall always bless our great country, the United States of America. This is Alpha Mike from Raider Cop Nation, signing out.
Guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home.
4323.
Somewhere right about the heart.
4323, just 1322.